Good day everyone and welcome to my video tutorial. My name is Jonah Pakita and I'll be giving you some writing tips. I hope you enjoy and learn something from this tutorial. Need help writing? No worries, you've come to the right place. A beginner? Advanced placement? All welcome. Writing tips and more. Personally, I try to leave out the parts I know people are going to skip. Unless you're writing for personal reasons alone, you need to consider the attention of your audience. There's no point in publishing content that isn't useful, interesting, or both. Here's a trick. Substitute the word damn for everything you say very. Gets pretty annoying, doesn't it? I used to feel that using words like really, actually, or extremely made my work sound more forceful. It doesn't. They only get in the way of what you're trying to say. Cut them and never look back. No matter how cheesy this sounds, you must fill your paper with the breathings of your hearts. It's not too hard to realize that if you're not excited about your writing, no one else will be. I don't want you to tell me that the moon is shining. Instead, show me the glint of light on a piece of broken glass. Simply stating something is fine, but when you need to capture attention using similes, metaphors, and vivid imagery, paint a picture creates a powerful emotional response. Maybe it was those late nights struggling to fill out the mandatory 10-page papers, but many people seem to think that worthwhile writing is long and drawn up. It's more difficult to express yourself in the simplest possible manner. When you're just starting out, it's hard to decide where to begin. So don't. Just start writing. A blog is a good place to start. The most valuable benefit is the feedback. A simple saying is, you have to know how to accept rejection and reject acceptance. Writing means putting yourself at the mercy of anonymous hecklers and shameless sycophants. Learn to make the most of the insults and distrust the praise. Quantity produces quality. If you only write a few things, you're doomed. The way you define yourself as a writer is that you write every time you have a free minute. If you didn't behave that way, you wouldn't never do anything. Successful writing is all about trust and authority. It makes sense to write about your area of expertise. If you don't have, reading and writing is the best way to develop one and put it on display. How you will be successful? Listen to the best advice, then do the exact opposite. Consistency is the last refuge of the unimaginative. Following what works will only get you so far. Take risk, experiment with the new styles, even if it means taking criticism. Without moving forward, you'll be left behind. Becoming a good writer takes time and practice, but that doesn't mean you can't speed up the process. Here are the 10 ways to become a better writer today. The best writers are voracious readers. There's no better way to improve your writing skills than by reading the works of others. It's important to read a variety of styles and genres. For example, if you want to write a fantasy novels, you should read fantasy novels, but also challenge yourself. Your writing skills and voice will broaden if you also read contemporary fiction, classic, non-fiction, and whatever else you can find. To become a great writer, you must practice your craft. If you're struggling to find the time to write, put writing time in your schedule. Many writers wake up early to write in what may be the most peaceful time of the day. Find the rhythm that works for you and stick with it. Writing isn't typically a self-taught profession. There are numerous resources you can pursue when you need formal training. You might enroll in writing classes or apply to a graduate writing program. If cost is an issue, seek out a free online writing courses. If you want to read about writing, you ought to pick up a copy of The Elements of Style by William Strunk. This influential guide to English and grammar is one of the most highly regarded books ever written on the topic. It includes 8 elementary rules of usage, 10 elementary principles of composition, a list of commonly misused words, and other rules of form that you can't do without. You're bound to be more expressive when you write if you have more words at your command. When you come across a word you don't know, take the time to look it up. Then try to use that new word you've learned in your writing. You can also seek out vocabulary building exercises online to increase the number of words you have at your disposal. Good writing is rooted deeply in good research. It's much easier to craft a well-written book, article, or a manuscript when you have a wealth of information at your fingertips. A good way to learn about the research practices of others is to study the bibliographies of books you read. Consider the sources other writers use and how they inform the text. There's no pressure to improve your writing quite like having to share it with an audience. Forums for sharing your work are plentiful. You can read it at an open mic night, publish it on a blog, or share it with your friends. You may also consider sending your work out for publication. While the rejection letter every writer receives can be disheartening, your persistence will help you grow as a writer. Writing skills are where aspiring and experienced writers get together for peer critics. By joining out of these groups, you'll get a variety of criticism on your own writing. Laurel K. Hamilton, author of the wildly popular Annetta Blake series, once said that 70% of a first draft is garbage and 30% is gold. And she couldn't be more right. Editing part of writing. You're fooling yourself if you think you can write a piece once and be done with it. There is always something that you can be improved upon. By taking the time to learn how to edit your own work, you virtually guarantee that you will become a better writer. Proofreading is just as important as editing. While the spell check tools are helpful, they'll often miss errors. Careless mistake can cost you a job, embarrass you, and ruin a good piece of writing. Always proofread what you write. Do it slowly and do it twice. 10 simple ways to get your creative juices flowing. It's important to remember this happens to all of us. It may last a couple of minutes, hours, days, weeks, but most of the times, there's a solution. You'll get through it. Never give up. Read yourself a distractions. Most of us are used to writing while listening to music, or having the laptop nearby, or the TV in the background. Well, if you're feeling black, try turning off anything. That might be a distraction. Enjoy the silence for a while. You might not notice, but silence says a lot. You need to focus. Watch your favorite movie. This really helps me a lot personally. I'll just play my favorite movie and it inspires me because I want to be able to write a story like that someday. So I just get motivated to write. Number 3. Drink coffee. Caffeine boosts your energy and just gets your mind stirring. Plus, it tastes amazing. Number 4. Don't pressure yourself too much. Don't you dare start insulting yourself or beating yourself up. There is no rush. Take all the time you need. Remember, you're doing this for yourself. Set up a schedule. I know that for almost everyone, writing just comes out of the blue. But if you tell yourself, for example, I'm going to sit down and write every day from 6 to 8 p.m., you will have ideas flowing in your head, just anxious for the time to come along. Remember to write it down in the moment if you don't have such an impeccable memory. Number 6. Write ideas down anytime, anywhere, anyhow. Whether you're at the doctor's appointment, or at a friend's house, or lying in bed, if you feel like you're thinking about something constantly, write it down. It might develop into something great. Phones come handy because you carry them everywhere, so just type it in. Is it can't or won't? Think about why you're having such a hard writing in the first place. Why are you stuck? You are in control of everything. You can write whatever you want. If you don't like it afterwards, you can just cross it out and write it again in a different way. Number 8. Listen to music and dance. This may sound a little silly, but it's true. Listen to your favorite genre of music, even if it's classical, and dance along with it while singing. Lock yourself up in the room and give a concert if you're embarrassed. Just do it. Just have fun for a couple of minutes before getting all serious. Number 9. Create character profiles. Creating character is my favorite thing ever, but it might be difficult sometimes. In order to write a story, you need characters, and all characters need a personality. You need to get to know your characters first of all. Sketch their appearance, write their likes and dislikes, and then make them something in your story. Number 10. Know what you want to write in the first place. Do you even know what you want to write about? No. No wonder you're blank. Brainstorming is essential. After you unclog what it is you want to write, the ideas will flow easily.
Hello, my name is Andy Heath, and in December 2012 I posted a video teaching you how to write a short story in 1 hour. I've had a lot of positive feedback on that video, but one thing several people asked for was an abbreviated version, as that video was an hour long. This video is a shortened version of the previous one, and in it I'll cover the highlights of how to write a short story in 1 hour, especially giving attention to idea generation. I'll also give a simple example of the process I go through to write a short story and plan it. Keep in mind, this is only an example, and I use it to illustrate how to plan a short story, not to give an example of a planned-out literary masterpiece. Planning is essential to writing a short story. I would never sit down to write a short story without some kind of rough outline that tells me where the story is going. So the first phase of writing a short story is actually a pre-writing exercise which outlines the 6 elements involved in a short story. Here are the 6 elements so you can keep them in mind during this video. They are the character, the problem the character can live with, the motivation to solve the problem, the action the character takes to solve the problem, the result of the character's action, and the change the character undertakes because of that action. When I sit down to write a short story, I start with a character in mind, and nothing else. Do I want to write about a goth teenager, a wealthy mother of 3 children, a struggling attorney, a teenage football star, a heroin addict? I simply start by writing down who the main character is, and just some general information about that character. Keep in mind that most short stories focus on one single character, even if there are multiple characters in that story. In other words, if you read a short story, there may be 3 characters in that story, but you should be able to tell me who the main character is. Who was the story about? When you write short stories, keep that in mind. No matter how many characters come up, you want your readers to be able to identify with one of them for the most part. The second thing I do in planning a short story is write down the problem that the main character is having. It is usually a problem the character has had for a long time, and something the character has no immediate need to solve. For example, if I'm writing about a heroin addict, the obvious problem is that the character could have is that he has a heroin addiction. He's probably not thrilled to be a heroin addict, but he also may not have any immediate motivation to solve that problem. The third thing I do is write down what motivation the character finally has to solve the problem. If we're talking about someone who has a heroin addiction, what motivates them to try to recover from that? I may decide that the main character discovers he has a 5-year-old daughter he never knew about, which of course means I need to set up how he finds out about his daughter from the beginning of the story. I might say that he hasn't heard from his mother in years, and all of a sudden she calls him one day. He doesn't know why she's calling, and when he presses her for the reason, she tells him that she found out about his daughter. At this point, the character has a motivation to solve his heroin addiction. He has a daughter that he never knew about and wants to be close to, and so he needs to be clean and sober in order to be a successful father. So what does he do? The fourth thing I write down is the action the character takes to solve his problem. If he has a heroin addiction, and he knows now that he has a 5-year-old daughter that he wants a relationship with, what's he going to do to solve his heroin problem? Does he go into treatment? Does he try to solve it on his own? In this case, I may say he throws away all his heroin and his needles and deletes his dealer's number. Then he checks himself into treatment. So that's the action he takes. But what's the result? Let's say after 30 days in treatment he feels he's successfully recovered, and maybe continues going to 12-step meetings to keep his recovery, using his daughter as motivation for his efforts. After he gets out of treatment, he goes and sees his daughter, but the mother of the child doesn't allow him to see her. That depresses him, and he goes back to using drugs. Or, on a happier note, perhaps I could say his newfound recovery has motivated him to try to find another relationship and have another child and a family, creating an ironic ending. After we know the result, we have to see how the character changes. In this case, he gave up drugs, but he also found confidence that he could do great things and the confidence that he is capable of a family relationship with a spouse and children. With that in mind, the story could end. Let's recap. Thus, we started with a character, a heroin addict. His problem was his heroin addiction. His motivation was finding out that he had a daughter, and that's what motivated him to solve the problem. The action he took to solve the problem was going to treatment. The result was that he got clean and sober, but but he did not get to have a relationship with his daughter. The change he underwent as a result of going through this story and through the actions of the story was a newfound confidence in his ability to have relationships. Those are the steps to writing a good short story. Let's keep in mind a few final thoughts. First, anytime a character takes an action, that character should have a very good reason to do so. Always make sure your characters act appropriately for who they are, unless they have a very good reason to do something different. Second, set up every event in the story. If the character is surprised to hear from his mother, make sure that you show in some way that the character would be surprised to hear from his mother, maybe by saying that he forgot to call her on Mother's Day, or something to that effect. Third, anytime you open something up, you must close it. In other words, if you have any kind of conflict in the story, you must resolve it prior to ending the story. This is very important. Even if the resolution is that the conflict continues, that's still a resolution. Make it intentional and use sound judgment. So that's the gist of how to write a short story, using the planning phase for writing the manuscript. Once you've outlined the story, you'll have no trouble writing it. I hope this video was helpful for those of you who don't have time to go through my whole video on how to write a short story in 1 hour. If you'd like to read some of my work, you can visit my blog at thefictionsite.com, or you can read my collection of short stories called Sacrilege, available on Amazon Kindle. You can search for Sacrilege and my name, Andrew Heath, and that will take you to this page that you can actually download the collection. This is Andy Heath signing off. Have a very nice day.
Good